Hey. Welcome to the Really Charlie podcast. Today's guest is Robbie Mendes, officially Robert Mendes, executive director of the New Bedford Boys and Girls Club. I couldn't wait for this show. I couldn't wait for this podcast because of what you meant to me and many others. So I just had to do this. And a mutual friend, Michael Kahn, was saying, get Robbie on there. I said, it wouldn't be a podcast without getting Robbie on there. So, how you doing?
I'm good, and thanks for the invite, Charlie, and again, for all you do. I think these podcasts are great. It gives us to kind of reconnect with people and find out what's going on in the community and what they're doing. And it's an honor. It's really an honor to be a part of it.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. You just can't get these stories. You some people are not aware of the stories that you can tell. Some of the other people that I had on here, and it's good to get them out there so they can put a people see Robbie and they want to say, "Oh, that's the boss," but it's just like one of us, and as I said in one of my posts, another Bay Village kid to another.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Straight out of Bay Village, and sometimes it's tough to lose a moniker because somebody says Robbie Mendes, and the first thing they say is Boys and Girls Club, and then somebody says Boys and Girls Club, and the first thing they say is Robbie Mendes. So it's a title that I'm proud to have and to be associated with.
Yeah, it's definitely. As long as I can remember, you've been there at the Boys Club, and the first time I went to the Boys Club with a membership, Mr. Ramus was there, and you were still there, and it's funny because I remember going through that front door, and you had that at one point. You had the office right in the middle,
right?
Yeah,
it was. It was. It's changed a lot, and obviously, the facility has grown, the membership has grown, but it's Charlie. I always say it's never like the old days. Those experiences back then that people who didn't get a chance to experience it, it's just unbelievable. And when we look back, and I always say I wish we could go back in time. I think if we went and did that and held to those ideals and those morals that we had growing up from the Bay Village all the way up to our adulthood, our community would be a much better place.
So true. You never went hungry in that Boys Club. If y'all seen a kid not eating or may not have a piece of candy or whatever, you always had some of the staff members or go ahead and buy us something. I remember the lady there, Gladys, I think her name was.
Oh, we had back then we had Miss Agnes.
Agnes
Smaller. She ran a concession stand there for us, and little Mickey Howard, and we've over the years there's been just so I think one of tributes to the Boys and Girls Club it has been its staff and the way they've kind of connected with people. Going back since I was a kid, it was Mr. Sumner back then, and Chet Travis was in the gym, and Mickey Dyer was, and then as I grew and became on the staff, Len Ramus became the executive director, who was kind of our superhero back then. It was great to see one of us sort of running an organization that saw so many of us, and obviously the infamous Bucky Vincent, who I've been very fortunate to work under so many people. Sue Career, I see somebody spot who for many years was sort of the backbone of the office back there, and also she was my enforcer there for a while when
Oh
things
yeah.
out of place. Sue would not hesitate to come out of that office and put a kid in their place, and that's the way we were. We just, as an organization, we commanded respect from the kids, and in turn, we gave them respect right back. And I think that's how they develop relationships over the years.
So true. The I remember just we somebody a couple of weeks ago we were talking about the bowling alley downstairs, and I can't remember. I think it was your nephew talking about my uncle sending me down there. It was like suicide, Get hit with one of those pins.
But I'll tell you, it was probably the most fun area of the club that we had. It was a 3-lane bowling alley where you had to set up your own pins, and you had to watch yourself because you had some guys who were pretty strong and they'd whip the ball down there and you'd hit the pin and it'd fly up, and you were supposed to sit on the backside, waiting and send the balls back down. And sometimes when the staff turned it back, you had balls going the other way, and it's amazing no one ever got hurt, but by the grace of God. But hours of time spent down there was phenomenal, and the joy of simply bowling. It was just so much fun.
Yeah, sure was. Sure was. Shauna says Joanne. Who's Joanne?
Oh, jeepers. I'm trying to remember now.
All right. I can't. But anyways, I had I used to. I loved going to the boys club, even if it got to the point where I had to walk up there from the south end. It was all worth it, And later on, going up there with, your brother, my Uncle David used to take us up there when we played for the Vets.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize that the Bay State League started at Pulaski School, And
a lot of people don't realize the Bay State League's been around for many, many years. I played in it. I know Jeepers on the team that I played on. Steve Ramus, Stevie Gomes, Amon Enos, Jeff Fisher, a lot of the guys, Eddie Martin, and we used to play. The games you had to go to the different junior high schools, and that was at the time it was Keith, the old Keith, and then I remember you went to Namandon, which was a smaller court, the old Namandon.
Yeah.
You played back there, and then eventually the Bay State League went to Pulaski School, and it was run by the recreation department. Barry Munier and Ronnie Lomba ran it for many, many years, and that's when I first started coaching. The first team I remember having was Model Cities. We were the boys club, but Model Cities sponsored us, and that was me and Russell Montero. Started that, and I remember our first team was my first year as a head coach and the first time doing it. And I started off with Mark Dias was my star player. Willie Pierce, for those of you know Willie now, but Willie was probably, in my estimation, probably one of the best athletes that New Bedford could have had. And unfortunately, he's seen his trials and tribulations. And Leroy Tolentino, and played up at Pulaski first year, and I remember we used to take the red van up there, and because I was still young as a coach, I was only probably like 5 or 6 years older than the guys coaching. I had to bring Russell on as the assistant coach because he had the insurance to drive the van because the club wouldn't let me drive the van. I wasn't old enough, but and I lucked out. We played our first year and we won a championship, and I thought, hey, it's going to be like this all the time, and it was some great talent has come through there, and I think we started with Model Cities, and then a few years later, I believe Dave Afonseca was coaching the Mets. They had a little league team, and I think after the first year or two, Bucky Vincent, who was now at the Boys and Girls Club, as the program director, came to me and he said he was also the AD for the Verdian Vets athletic program. And he said, "Hey, I need a coach." And prior to that, I believe my brother Jojo was coaching the Vets, and that was a big rivalry between us. And eventually, there were two divisions: the Pee Wees and the Little League. And then Dave gave it up, and I took over the Vets Pee Wee team, and that was a phenomenal run for me with some unbelievable players. I had Jeepers on one team, which we just bounced on through the league, and it was Aaron Berg, Johnny Sylvia, Jamal Magnet, Billy Helpman, and David Rose. And those were the guys that were just, we just ran that league ripshot. Those kids were just so talented, and, we would run a weave, would do a press in the whole 9 yards, and it was unbelievable. And even those years, I brought on, I think, the first girl to ever play in the Bay State Basketball League was Danny Gomes, right out of the village. Kathy's daughter and Larry O'Burger's daughter. Danny was I called her the first lady of the Bay State League. And then I look back on a lot of the girls that played for me, and we were probably the first team. I was the first coach to really bring girls in and allow them to play. And we've had some phenomenal ones. Shanae played. She was tremendous back then. Lashana Barboza was one of our leading players back in the day, and it was just great to bring the girls in, and even till today, got Anae Adams, who's playing at Tilton Academy up in New Hampshire, played for the Boys Club, and I look around and Bridget Markey and at the high school, there's 4 or 5 players who played for me as girls, and it showed when they got to the high school level how far advanced they were in girls basketball.
Exactly. It was tremendous for Shanae because a lot of those kids, on her team, one that comes to mind is like Wilson Pilate. Those are the ones that were talking to her, encouraging her to play hard, keep playing, so she had a sense of belonging being around all those boys. So, and that's what it's about. That's what it's about.
And the great thing about it was, the boys accepted them, and they didn't back off. They weren't letting the girls just go. They were going to bang in practice and play hard, and the girls gave it right back. That was the great part, I think, about it. And I think for me, that was the most important thing. It wasn't just playing basketball and I've been coaching, over 45 years. And we were looking back a few years ago, and I said, during that time span, I won like 33 championships, and it really, didn't dawn on me. And it wasn't about the winning, Charlie. It wasn't about, it was the friendships that were made with the kids, again, them meeting other kids that they never would have met before, and me meeting them, and not only, the players, but getting to know their families and becoming friends with their families. And, you're getting old when, you coach like Mark Dias, and then, a few years back, his son comes along, and the son would not believe that his father played for me because, they were like, no, there's no way. And now you're looking, you're coaching some kids that play for you, their grandchildren. I was like, holy smokes, man, but it might be time to get out of here. But
you stay right there. You stay right there.
Yeah. But, and I think the success of the program that, I just really instilled just the fundamentals of basketball and good sportsmanship. And I wanted not just good basketball players, I wanted good kids and make sure that I was there to guide them beyond the game, even after the season was over.
So true. And it's I remember one moment. I'll go back to Shanae. You put her in the game, and she happened to be under the basket, and the big kid there from Diamonds, Haggerty. He's like, it grew to 7 feet, but Shanae was coming to get a rebound, and he just standing there, got the rebound. It was kind of comical. So,
but and you take it like that, and she, again, she didn't back down though. It's like, and that was the great part about it.
Yeah, it's so if you had to tell a story, well, the walls in the boys club, if they could talk. Now we don't want to go to the south side of the boys club. We want to go to the kind of north side in the old gym. If those
Oh,
walls could talk and you
wow.
could share a story, what would you share with us?
There were just some unbelievable things, and we put a new addition on in 2000, and but there's nothing like the old gym. And even till this day, I know guys have come in that have gone for years, and they'll just walk in and say, it's got the same smell. It's got that gymnasium smell. So we kind of refer to it as the old Boston Garden. It's
Yeah.
like, God, you're going there, and on the other side they say, oh, that's the TD Garden, is the new gym.
Uh-huh.
But there were just so many stories in there, and it wasn't just in the gym; it was part of the boxing program and things of that nature. And the story that we would share was like, back then, and players have evolved. They're different now, and I kind of refer to it as sort of the microwave age. I think these kids nowadays, it's almost like just popping something in the microwave and hitting the button, and they think they're instant basketball players. And I would always say, hey, it's like trying to make manchoop. You don't make manchoop in a microwave. It takes time. You got to cook it, and it takes hours to brew. And I think a lot of the kids have lost that. And when I look back now on those days where there were basketball games, kids from every high school around, they'd get here about in the off season about 6 o'clock. And the funny stories were, they just played up and down, called winners. You'd have like 20 kids sitting in the bleachers waiting to get on the court to the point where we closed at 9 and they just wouldn't stop. And then, the only way we could get them out was either you shut the lights off, and then they were complaining because they couldn't find their clothes, or the infamous Mr. Vincent would come out of the boxing ring with this little whip that he had, and he just snapped the whip and he says, okay, everybody out, and you just see guys scatter all out of the place. But they were, and there were some nights where I didn't mind. We'd stay here till 9:30 at night, and I tell Mr. B, hey, go home, let them finish the game, I'll watch them. And but there are some watching somebody like Andre McCoy trying to play basketball up and down the court was kind of funny. And to see a lot of the kids and how the Bay State, that's how the Bay State Basketball League actually came to the Boys and Girls Club. It was many years ago, like I said, the rec department had it. And Barry Munier came up to me and said there were, it was sad because they said there was no money in the recreation budget to keep the league going. And you had about 16, 18 teams that were absolutely kids were going to play nowhere. And he came to me and I said, jeepers, I have to go back and check. I met with Len Ramus. I was the gym director at the time, and I asked Lenny, I says, hey, if we don't do it, we're not going to have any league. We're not going to have a boys club team. We're not going to have any league. And, he didn't even bat an eyelash. He was like, bring it down here. And he said, on the one condition, he goes, you're going to have to run it. And I said yes, because I wanted to and for the kids, but I didn't know what I was getting into. So like the first 4 or 5 years, I didn't realize I was the commissioner, I was the treasurer, I assigned officials, and I coached all at the same time. And sometimes it got frustrating because a lot of people didn't know what you did to keep, and as well as I do, the work that's done in the background, and a lot of coaches catch a lot of heck for, at the time where parents are yelling at them, but nobody sees all the time they put in for practice and all the other stuff. And so it was really a daunting task, and it was weird because it wasn't weird. It was a little upsetting because everybody would complain, but nobody wanted to step up and do it.
True.
So I did that for far too many years by myself, and then finally some guys I just encouraged some of the other coaches. You got to get involved in this because I'm not going to be able to continue to do this by myself. And and then we put together a board of officers, and they took a lot of the burden off of me to the point where I can just coach now.
Good. Let's go to some of these comments. It's a little history. Let's see. It says the club was our second home. I was a boy. Let's see, boy of the year the year back to 61 and 62. Was on the board for a while, worked at the camp for a few years in the club. It was a great place. It was the boys' club back then. Jim Sumner, Mickey, Mr. Travis, Bucky Vincent, outside basketball court, great times.
I'm guessing, but that's probably Johnny Duat.
Okay.
John Duat was a staple here at the club, and I remember him being Boy of the Year and working at the camp, and he was on our board for a time, and John was just a great guy, and those are the guys that I kind of learned from too. There were many people that kind of set the stage for me. Chet Travis was a big influence in my life as far as working with the Boys and Girls Club, and then Jim Sumner, all those guys they mentioned, and to come up through the system under the tutelage of Lenny Ramus was a great advantage for me, and then to have Bucky, it was a weird situation with me and Bucky because I was the gym director and Bucky became the program director, and then when Len left, we kind of jumped. I went from that to becoming the executive director. So I went from Bucky being my boss to me being Bucky's boss, which wasn't a good transition for me because the fear factor was just
yeah.
And the one great story that I'll tell regarding me and Bucky was when I first became the executive director. Bucky would go on his boxing trips on the weekend, and they'd go up to Colorado. I mean, they'd go all over the place, and there was a place I think they were going up in New Hampshire or something to box for the weekend. It was a tournament, and Bucky wanted to take the van, and we had scheduled the van for something else. And so my first duty as executive director was telling Bucky Vincent he couldn't take the van. Well, for those of you who don't know, you don't tell Bucky Vincent no. So and he came into my office and he says, "I'm taking the van," and I go, "You're gonna have to wait because I got to check the schedule." And so he just looked at me and he would, his look, and he was like, "What are you talking about? I've been doing this for years, and I've always had the opportunity to take the van." And I said, and here I am, the boss. I'm saying, "Mr. V, you gotta, I gotta make a decision here because I got 12 kids who got to go here, and you're taking 3 boxers who got to go there." Yeah. But he wasn't happening. He says, and I said, well, I need to know. So I said, well, let me think about it. And he leaves the office, and I said, but I don't think it's going to happen. And he says, well, why not? And I says, well, because I got to make a decision, and I'm the executive director. Well, Charlie turns and he pounds his fist on my desk, and he goes, "You'll be the executive director when I say you're the executive director." And he walked out, and I'm sitting there like, what am I going to tell this guy tomorrow? Because he's coming back, and finally he came back the next day, and I'm sitting at my desk, and I'm glad, it had a front to it because my knees were shaking. He was on the other side, and I had to tell him, I said, we can't do it. It's not in the best interest of the club. And he got up and he, with that scary look on his face, and he just looked me in the eye and he says, "Okay." And he goes, "I'm going to tell you something right now." And I said, "What's that?" He goes, "Now you're the executive director." He says, "That's a good choice you made." And he walked out. But it was, the years that I spent with that man was phenomenal. And what I've learned from him is still helping me today.
Yeah, I like to eventually get a lot of people on the show, podcast, and just share some Bucky Vincent stories. That would be great. Let's see here. Nate, let's see. Jeff Correa.
Oh boy.
Says he says, "Such a great man to smell his roses. Had an impact in everyone's lives that walked through the Boys and Girls Club. It's always been the club that beats the streets. Thank you for all you've done, Mr. Mendes. Sincerely, Sidney Moncrief."
Let me tell you, and I'm glad he came out because I'll tell you a story about him. We were playing, he played for me, and I called him Sidney Moncrief because he had the thin legs and he could run. Jeff was one of the best defenders, and we were playing in the championship game against Apponequet. It was a Lakeville team, and I believe it was Derek Rose from upon him. His Dan Rose's son, and he was one of the best players in the league, and they were undefeated, and we get them in the finals. And I decide to change the defense, and I go to a boxing one on this kid, and he'd never seen it before throughout the whole season. And I put Jeffrey on, I put Fufu on him, and I says,
Yep.
you don't do anything but watch that guy the whole game. And he goes in, and he's watching him, and the first time the ball comes down, I remember this clearly. The ball rolls over, and Fufu sees it, and he goes to run to pick it up. And the other team got it. They threw it to that kid, and he hits the basket. Well, I call timeout, and I pull him out, and I says, you know something? I told you, for the rest of this game, don't you leave that kid. Charlie, the rest of the game, he was in that kid's shirt. When the kid left to go on the bench, he came on our bench. When he went back in, the funny part about it, and I just yelled at him and told him, if you don't do what I tell you, you're not playing.
Mm-hmm.
We're leaving. We win the game, and we're leaving, and we're going to the van, and this kid is walking to his car, and I'm loading everybody, and I says, where's Fufu? He's following the kid to his car. And I said, what are you doing? I said, let's go. And he said, Coach, you told me wherever he goes, that's where I go. And the kid's father's looking like, get this kid away from me. And all the players are, so we get him in the car, but we ended up winning the championship. But he was the main reason why. I mean, he was a great defender, but and I always tell him, yeah, you're the only one who listens, man. And he followed that kid.
It's Fufu. I love him, man.
He's a great. He's always a happy kid. He's a happy kid.
I mean, we all know how fast he was, and so being on the job, Fufu would always say, "You can't catch me, Charlie. You can't catch me, Charlie." I said, "I'm gonna catch you. I'm gonna catch you." So I always see him he'll be at a game. I tap him on the shoulder, and I say, "I got you." That's the only way I was gonna catch Fufu.
Yeah.
But let me see. We got Michael Kahn with said Robbie is a man of tremendous character and is just a great role model for thousands of kids. And besides his busy schedule, has taken time to allow me to have my annual Thanksgiving photo over 32 years. And because of him, the 35 in the over league and the 40 and over league basketball league, which allows us older people to still be a part of the game. The Boys Club was also a training ground for future referees. And if you can ref at the Boys Club, you can ref anywhere. It says Rob was also one of the best shooters. And I can attest to all of that. So I second everything that he said. Yeah.
There's a lot, Charlie. There's a lot of people out there, and when you do this, it's more of you learn and you try to take little bits and pieces from everybody that you come across. And when I look back and starting, for me, one of my idols that got me involved was actually Steve Ramos's father, Tony Ramos, and him and Turtle Rosario were my basketball coach for the Vets. And to see the commitment that those guys had to drive down the South, and they worked all day long and drive to the Vets Hall to pick us up for the game, and truckers all over the city to those games, and weren't getting paid for it, and obviously they made an impact on you, and so you just try to pay that forward. And when you look around the city of New Bedford, we've had a lot of people and even in the Cape Verdean community who have really set the groundwork for a lot of us to do what we've done today. And I look back, and Manny Costa was somebody that everybody knew, and Toy Forts, who there'll never be another Toy Forts. I put Toy up there with some people I don't even consider the 50 years. A great guy, and somebody who, like I always said, whenever I got together with Toy, no matter what the situation was, it was a laugh. We always ended up laughing, and he would just turn around and say, we look at each other, and we always had this thing when we saw, and even if we didn't see each other for a while, with all the years that he's done with tumbling and me with basketball, he would say, Robbie, how many more years? And I said, Charlie, I said, Toy, they're still coming. And I said, we all want to retire. And I said, I always say I'm done with basketball. And then some 7-year-old kid will come along and kind of tug at your heartstrings, and he's playing for you. And then I say, well, I can't leave now until the kid's out of the program. And that's why I never retired, because they kept coming. And Toy was the same way. That the people he touched was phenomenal. And, somebody who will truly be missed. And, and I praise you for saying, you're doing things like this and saying, I always use your line, I want to give you just flowers while you can smell them, and that's so true. And that's what we need to do in this community.
Yeah, we do, because this year was, last year was so scary, because you've seen a group of people leaving us, and it's a group of people that were, friends, dear friends, and one after another. It was very, very it was an eye opener, and I every day I just wanted to go to work, come home, stay safe, because I was really afraid, because I lost a lot of family and friends, including you on the same boat. It's one thing about New Bedford. Friends and family, we all know each other. And there's some kind of connection between all of us. So, Damon the man that says, who does Rob feel can carry the torch moving forward to keep that program growing and being productive for our children?
That's a great question. I remember attorney John Mackey had asked me that. We were sitting down one day just hanging out with a bunch of guys, and he said, who's the next Robbie Mendes? And I said, John, thanks for the compliment, but I'm not sure, because I think, and again, Charlie, it's going back to the old school people who once they started, they did it for no recognition at all. That a lot of us did it for, there was no pay. You've done so much. And I look back at the people who sort of influenced me and what got me to do it, and you kind of hope that somebody else would step up. It was guys like Danny Concesio was and Bunny. Those were the greatest. The time that they gave and inspired me. And even with Danny, I think the greatest compliment I ever got was having Danny Concesio come to my office and ask for my opinion on something, and he was dealing with some kids, and he said, hey, Robbie, I need to ask something. And he was a funny guy. Danny was a jokester, and I loved him to death, but he'd come in and he'd say, hey, the parents are doing this, and this kid on my football team. And he says, what do you think? And I'd sit and tell him. And then after I told him, he would say, something, I was thinking the same thing, you're right. And he says, you got a great mind because you think like me. And when he left, unbeknownst to him, when he left, I'm like, what a compliment to have somebody like that come to you and so to ask for your advice and there were many so much. Butch Firmino was another one who gave so much of his time. And then you look at Bucky Vincent and, Sean Hargraves down at Denison, who again is a longtime friend and who has done tremendous things. A great guy, and Joe Gill, and you look around, and then at some point we had it here at the club. Dave Concesio, who used to work here with me, I thought would have been that guy going forward, and then he changed, venues. But there's another guy who's put so much work, and you got guys like Michael Concesio who's given back, and Peter Brito, and I hate start mentioning names because you're always going to miss somebody.
Yep.
There are people that are sort of been icons, and whether they've done it for a paid job. When I look back, somebody like Mickey Gonzalez, who, again, I put above so many people because Mickey was just a true person and an honest person with, in his work with kids. So going forward, you always wish, I think somebody in my position always kind of wishes that, we need somebody to step up, and it's incumbent to keep this going forward. And but it takes a special kind of person to work with kids. You got to have some
Exactly.
patience, compassion, and if you don't have the patience, and especially in this day and age, it's tough because like you said back then, we had a little bit more control. Even though that
Yeah.
how many parents ever came to you and said, "Hey, you see my son do something, you give him a whack."
Yeah.
They wouldn't dare go home and tell him. You can't do that nowadays because now the kids look at you like, "Go ahead and touch me," because I got my lawyer's name right in my cell phone. So it's tough, but you kind of hope that there's somebody out there, and even in my position as a coach, you're seeing some young guys come up, Alan Fonseca and coaching, at Denison, and you look in the league
Yeah.
and some of the guys who are coaching, and my nephew Derek, Derek Baptiste,
Yeah.
who's out there doing some things, and it's great to see those guys do it, and you just kind of keep your fingers crossed and hope that they'll keep it going. But and I think it goes beyond sports too, and our experience here at the Boys and Girls Club wasn't just basketball and things of that nature. It was having kids come here every day. I think back to I saw Nate Victor on there. Some of the funny things that Sharik Mendes and Paul Almeida, and we can go on, and the guys from West Lawn, and the great thing about it, Charlie, is we had guys from West End, South End, North End come in here, and it was never any problems. That was the great thing about being back in them days. And Friday nights they used to have dances here at the club, and you have kids from all over the city come.
Oh
and
yeah.
It was over. Everybody went home. There was no problem. It's unfortunate nowadays where it's got to be a South End West End thing, and you just don't want that.
No, and it's you were able to evolve with as kids change over the one decade from the next. You were able to evolve and keep yourself and to have that huge impact. And that's the one thing I admire, because really as time goes on, people kind of say, "Oh, I can't do this no more. These kids are different. These kids are this or that," and you, or someone like you would say, "Well, wait a minute. Well, let me make some adjustments. Let me do what I have to still be that mentor." The one before I forget, the one thing that I admire about the Boys and Girls Club is along the wall in the hallway. I don't know if it's still there, where you guys have placed former members that went on to college, academically, whatever it may be, and you put their names on the wall, and it was, to me, it was something to look at and something that would inspire the other kids there. Well, I want to get my name up there. And one thing that, as the kids that I coached and they went on to, leave the high school or leave the high school and go on to college or play some ball or just attend college, I would always try to get a T-shirt with their college on it, whether it's Bridgewater, Stonehill, Boston College. I always try to get one of those T-shirts to say, "Hey, I'm supporting you." So I just want to commend you. Whoever came up with that idea for the names on the wall, that was great.
That was something that I instituted many years back, and part of it was because I think to change the image of the boys and girls. I mean, whenever back in the day when people thought about the boys club and Boys and Girls Club, all they thought about was basketball. You went there and you shoot some pool, and we have some pretty talented kids, in our city that go above and beyond the athletic piece. So, when I took over as executive director, I incorporated an educational tutorial program called Power Hour, which helps kids with their homework after school every day. And, we partnered with UMass Dartmouth to get some students down here to help tutor the kids. And I thought that was important because we put a strong emphasis on education. And the reason for that, Charlie, was more of we saw so many of our talented athletes in the city of New Bedford after high school. That was it. They just didn't, and they weren't inspired to go on and get, further their education. And some did and some didn't for various reasons. It wasn't about sports. And I look up on that wall, and that's one of the things that, I tell those kids, you don't have to be a basketball player to go to college, and you don't have to be a great football player or this, that, and the other, and how important education is. And one of the things I really instill in my players is that you have to realize that, and a lot of them are on sports, and they say, I say, you have no control over some things in your life. And I said, when you go play sports, as good as you are, that coach dictates how much you play and when you play. If you don't have the right temperament with the coach, then you may not, as talented as you are, you may never get on the court. And we've seen that in some kids who we know in our community were talented basketball players and never played at the high school level because of differences of philosophies with coaches. I tell the kids this all the time. I says, they can take the ball away from you, they can take the bat away from you. But one thing that if you go out and you get your high school diploma and your college degree, that is something no one can ever take away from you. That's
so true.
It's important that these kids know that and how it can affect their lives going down the road. And I look up on that wall, and a lot of those players played for me. And after the Bay State League, they never played another game of basketball, but they went on to become doctors and they're lawyers and they're educators. I look at Bedford High School and I see guys like, Isaiah Hauptman and Mark DeBritto, who are out there making an impact through education and helping our kids and, people in the law area. Our board, we just inducted, we just brought on 5 new people to our board of directors at the Boys and Girls Club. And, they were all former club members. LaShawna Barbosa, Shona Rose, and Romaine Grace, Timmy Walsh, and AJ Tabaz. They're all former club members who have experienced the club and lived their lives here, and they're all doing great things, as well as our board president, who just came on, was John Seed, who John started playing basketball for me. And then the funny story I tell about John was, as he was going to college and through law school, he was doing working here part-time to keep some money. And we had a concession stand here, and Connie Poo Pino was the cook. And then one day Jerry Houston came in and said, hey, you got to clean the grease trap every once in a while. So we figured, hey, we'll just open it up and, clean the trap. And once we opened that thing, the smell would just knock you out on your back. And I'm the boss now, so I grabbed John C. and I go, that's your job, clean the grease trap. And the guy's in there scraping out and he's gagging and he's trying to vomit. And but he got it done. And unbelievable. He comes back years later, and now he's the board president of the board. And I just hope as the president, he doesn't tell me, go down there and clean the grease trap. John's a great guy, and we've got a great board.
Yes.
Dave Concesio is on there. Bino Dias, a lot of people from the community, Jerry Houston, Josie Gonzalez, guys who have put many, many years into this organization. And some of them have been on our board just as long as I've been executive director. And that's a tribute to them because they're giving back to the community and they're really committed to what we do here.
Yeah, that group that you selected, unbelievable. It kind of, when I seen it, I was like, wow, look at that. Boys Club, Boys Club, Boys Club, Boys Club. And it was good to see that they were all members there. So now they can relate to everything, the programs that you need to run, everything about the Boys Club, they can definitely relate to it on experience. So that I want to commend everybody that made that selection. Great job.
I mean, we've done well over the years, like I said, with our board, and you got to take your hat off to the community, in supporting this organization, and especially over the last year, with COVID, it was a difficult situation for everybody, and I know here, it kind of broke my heart to have to close the doors because now you're saying, what are these kids doing? Where are they at? Are they okay? Are they safe? And we stuck through it and put together a robust plan, a safety plan to make sure that, when it was allowed, we could open up our doors. and we've done so. We've worked with the school department. We've worked with the Board of Health. And my main thing was trying to get the kids back to some semblance of normalcy, just getting out of the house, seeing your friends face to face. And, even though it's funny, it's, you turn down to the fact where you just wanted them here and making sure they were safe. And, they're under some difficult conditions for these kids. And you got to be someone who just, you got to care. And our community, I think, has done a tremendous job in getting through this crisis.
Yeah, it's I try to Rob, see if you can turn your volume down a little bit.
Must be Dave, huh?
Yeah, he's saying there's some feedback. So, guys always trying to tell you what to do, man.
Oh my God, Charlie. That's my boy though. I love him like a brother. He worked for me. He moved on. He's doing great things. My golf partner. Well, at least I golf. He just comes with me. But I mean, we've been together for years, and somebody that will just the apple didn't fall too far from the tree. The greatest compliment that I can give him is he's like his dad. And Danny was a great guy, and Dave just falls right in line.
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine. Always can count on him. I remember talking to him when he wanted to join the police force, and I was just, I told him, "You can do it, man." I didn't mean to take him away from you, Robbie, but
Well, you didn't. That was a funny story. Was that when he decided he was going to go, it was probably one of the and I'm not speaking for him. He said it was one of the most difficult decisions of his life. And, he came into my office and he said, "I got to tell you something." And I'm like, "What's the matter?" And he was really nervous, and and he says, "I got this opportunity," and he says, "I don't want to let you down." And I said, "You'll let me down if you don't go." It was a chance to really do something, and I told him, I said, "You don't go, I'm going to be very upset with you." And I said, we'll go on. And it was tough replacing him, but it was a great joy to see him move forward and actually, again, he's a better person for it.
Yeah, he's doing good things and continues to do good things. I'm glad he's there. And as glad as I am that he's been there for all those years, believe it or not, I can't wait until he's out of there. I just want to get, I'm the man is I've seen some great things on the job with him, and it's crazy because every time I went to Boys Club, one of the first places I would go to is to the gym office just to see if he's there, But he's one of those guys that you talked about earlier about, doing a lot of good things, and I definitely seen David Kahn do a lot, and so.
And I mean he's affected a lot of lives of kids coming up, and still till this day when you talk, I talk to some kids, they're like, "Hey, how's Dave doing?" This, that, and the other, and sometimes those stories we won't tell the stories because they were funny, and as a police officer we would have gotten in trouble if some of the things we did back then, but it was all, like I said, out of love, and some of the things we did, and those kids today still remember it, and they love it. They'll talk so glowingly about it, and but he did have a tremendous impact on a lot of kids growing up, and he was a credit to the club as well as every staff member that's come through the store. The years have gone by, and I've had an opportunity to work with some great people. Dave and Lenny and Bucky and Bernadette, who was here for so long and made a tremendous impact. She was, we always used to kid that, she was like, I was Chuck Woolery and she was my Vanna White, because she would turn the letters when it was time to do things. But Bernie made a tremendous, and she's still doing great things in the community. And I look at my staff now, and Gene Silver and, Aaron Messier, it just keeps going. And, your
True.
Wow, it's a long. I've been here a long time, but I've been very, very fortunate. When people turn around and give a lot of compliments to me, I always look at it as like you're only as good as the people you surround yourself with, and I've surrounded myself with some great staff and some great friends, and even through sports, I know we always sort of come back to basketball, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention a guy like Tony Estes, who
Yeah.
has been great in this community and also with the basketball program, given years and years of his life to kids. And, everybody thought, it was always a big rivalry. It was the boys club and Tony's Bruins going at it. And everybody thought we were like we hated one another. And little did they know, me and Tony are the best of friends and have the admiration and respect of each other. Always will. He was somebody that, and he is somebody that I always sort of tip my hat to. As competitive as we were during the games, when it was over, it was a handshake and a hug, and see you next time. And that's the way it should be.
It should be that way. And I talked to him, and I wanted to set up something with with Tony, just like I'm doing with you. But you know how Tony is. He's kind of he's reserved, and But with that, I got something else up my sleeve when it comes to Tony and Steph. So we're gonna figure it out. But Dante Montero says a half court shot from Bernie, and yes, he was infamous.
The hook shot. I don't know how she did
the hook
it.
shot.
She always made one. I don't know how she did it. But,
you know what? That comes from, and I don't care what she says, but I know where that's coming from. That's coming from Manny Costa at Monty's, and every time he went to Monty's, he went to half court, and he shot a hook shot for us. And I guarantee you that's where she got it from. And when I do talk to her, in fact, I invited her to this podcast along with David, and I wanted them to come on and kind of be part of this, but we had a schedule conflict, so they couldn't make it. But just as you're kind of glorifying everything that they have done, I know they would do the same thing for you. So you probably heard it 10 million times from Bernie and David how much they appreciate you. See, Nathan Victor says you guys combined Tony's Bruins and the Boys Club with my group. We straight Molly whooped that tournament that gave us a huge fake gold medals when we won.
He was crazy. I mean, I'm telling you, honestly, when you look around, we've had some tremendous basketball talent in the city of New Bedford over the years, and it goes way, way back. But working with those kids, and we went, on tournaments like he said. You're playing up in Boston, and we were playing in Worcester and Brockton, and everybody thought we were great around here. But there was some great talent out there. We always held our own. If we didn't win it, we were sort of the runner-ups, and we would have the Reebok tournament with boys and girls clubs across the New England and New Bedford. Sort of always, we always were in the championship game, and we won it. And I always remember because I had to be one of the regional directors, and we would sit with all the clubs across the state and pick names as to who was playing who in the brackets. And whenever anybody got our name, they just kind of moaned and was like, "Oh, we're out in the first round." And so our kids always went up there and they represented us well in not only those tournaments, the rec tournament and around here. And they were right. It was funny because people started sort of pitting us. It was Tony would always have a team going into a tournament, and I would always have a team. And at the end of the tournament, always us against Tony's, and we're playing in Fall River and Plymouth and all the other places. So they got a little smart, and they turned around and they would put us against each other in the first round. So got knocked out. So me and Tony got together, and we saw what they were doing. They said, "Well, I'll tell you what, we'll just combine our team, and we'll go in as one team." And we did, and eventually they wouldn't allow us back because we won it every year. but it was great. And the guys, you're talking Marcus Wills and Adam Clark and Jeffrey Clark, and my guys were Billy Helpman and all of them, and we they all got together, and when we put those two teams together, that nobody could beat us. No. But and there were some great teams. I know Denison had some great teams over the years, and through the Bay State League, and Ponequid, Lakeville always had one. But it was great to see some of those the kids that have gone on to high school, and we look around and see at those who have gone on like Bonzi Colson and things of that nature, and see those guys go on and do great things and represent our city.
I wish Bonzi would go to the Celtics. At least he would knock down more threes than the Williams character there. But George DeMello wanted me to tell you the story. He says, I'm going to pick Robbie's brain. Now I'll ask him if he remembers going to play softball in non-equipped Mattapoisett. Because he said he was teaching me softball, become one of the best home run hitters around. Ask him about ping pong tournaments. I won all the time, and I won a soda. He said he won a soda and a bag of chips.
A bag of chips. I mean, that was some, and George is right. I mean, we had some battles here, ping pong pool and bumper pool, and it was a thing where, we had tournaments. You won the tournament, you got a bag of chips and a soda, and everybody thought that was better than getting, Larry O'Brien trophy or something like that. And there was some battles. I mean, Sharik Mendes and Paul Almeida would go at it, and sometimes those guys almost went to fist fights after it was over. And then after it was over, we'd all sit around in the games room around the table and start cracking on each other and talking about each other, and the jokes that went back and forth. And I mean, we did that when we were younger. Even we'd have Mickey Gonzalez and Lonnie Gomes going at one another, joking. Through the years, it was kind of a tradition here at the club, and nobody got offended. We talk about it. And, that was one of the things. And as we get older and we look back, that's the difference with back then. And I always say, some of the great traits that sort of I sort of have today, I got from growing up in the Bay Village. It was just a family type of atmosphere where I didn't realize it, and I left there when I was 10 years old, but once I left, I realized that all those people that I called Aunt Guy and Auntie, Rosie and something like that weren't even my aunts or uncles, but that was the culture in the Bay Village. Everybody was like family, and the respect that you had for everybody, and how our parents could go off and do this food shopping and not worry about who was watching their kids, because the neighbors automatically, watched everybody and took care of everybody. And I remember that, and that's instilled in me, all my life, and that's sort of the process that I brought upon, in being part of the Boys and Girls Club, instilling confidence in kids. You got to find that kid who doesn't think he's that good, or doesn't belong, and you bring out something positive in him. And I think that's what makes the difference when those kids come back and turn around and say, thank you for what you did. And sometimes you don't even realize what you did. And I remember that I was at Gia Marvel's a couple of years ago, and I'm standing in line waiting for a sandwich, and a gentleman, he was a man now, he was working for the city, and he was in the back of the line, and he saw me, and he just yelled out my name, and Robbie Mendes on the Boys Club. And I turned around, and I was like, yeah, how you doing? I won't mention any names. And I said, yeah, how you doing? And how that place was always packed. You try to get a sandwich, and he just started rambling on. He goes, that guy saved my life. If it wasn't for him and the Boys Club, I wouldn't be here today. And I'm standing there waiting to get my sandwich, and there was a gentleman beside me, and I remember this vividly. He was in a suit, and he was actually an attorney. He was coming from the courthouse, and he stopped there to get lunch. And the guy in the back just kept going on and on about how the Boys Club and myself and did this for him and that. And so the guy standing next to me, and he goes, he says, what do you do? And he says, because this guy's really got you. And I said, I just work for the Boys and Girls Club. And he goes, well, I don't know what it is, but, he says, apparently you had quite an impact on this guy. And, we got a sandwich and we were leaving, and the guy was in front of me, and he turned to the cashier and he goes, I'm paying for his lunch. And I go, you don't have to do that. And he goes, no, he says, I'll do it on the one condition. I said, what's that? And he says, you just keep doing what you're doing. He says, because you're making a difference in people's lives. And that's kind of what inspires you to keep going.
So true. So true. I mean, I wish I could have stayed put in a lot of places, a lot of titles that I had, because I'm seeing now that, especially on the police force, that opportunity there allowed me to do a lot of things for a lot of kids, in and out of school, in and out of the courthouse, so on and so forth. And a lot of people that I know, they're no longer there, so I got to kind of prep up my bio and then say this is who I am, and so I missed that point. I missed kind of going in and out of the schools, the courthouse, without mentioning or without saying my name. Now I got to kind of go through it, but it is what it is. Got David Kahn there. Yeah. We got David. We got so many young police officers out there that are going to continue to do their job. You mentioned Alan Fonseca, definitely good dude, and a lot of men and women that are still doing their things there, and I'm proud of them. So eventually I'll get some of those guys on, but sometimes with that title of being a police officer, you have to ask permission to do these things, and so. Oh, Rob, I mean, I know you got a lot of stories, and I want to bring those out, eventually. Please, let's do this again.
Absolutely.
And even if we do it with a combination of you and a few others, you mentioned Sean Hargraves, Joe Neves. I got them coming on, next week. So, and I stole this from All That Smoke, with Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes, NBA players on their podcast. And I want to ask you, who do you think should be a guest on the Really Charlie podcast?
Wow. There
Could be a
just
few
so many.
people.
There's so many worthy people. I've seen Charlie, and you've done a great job, because the people that you've had on this is people who are an influence on the community, and I'm proud to watch it, because there are a lot of them who were an influence on me, even though they may have been my peers. You take that, but that's a good question, because there's so many deserving. I mean, you couldn't go wrong. You got somebody like a Dave Concesio, and any as you mentioned, a lot of those police officers who I think would be great, because I think our community would see the other side of them, out of the uniform, and they're human beings, and they do great things, and despite the fact that some of them might not get a bad rap, there's just so many. Mark DeBrito, Isaiah Hauptman, who are in the school system and making change for our kids. Derek Baptiste, a lot of them who are doing these outside programs that just keep things going. So you can't go wrong. But I just got to commend you for what you're doing, because it opens the door for so many. And I mean, you could have a show on yourself, because all the things you've done, and and sometimes don't get the recognition that you truly deserve. So I want to give you your flowers here today, because you deserve it.
Thank you.
Say thanks for what you've done.
I appreciate it. And when you see President John Seed, you talk to him. He's left me hanging. I've been trying to get him on this podcast, him and a few of his friends.
Yeah.
But you know what? He's leaving me hanging. So don't worry about those grease traps, because when I get done with, he's gonna clean a few more when I get done with. But Robbie, thank you so much, and I really appreciate you. And let's do this again.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. God bless. Thank you.
Take care.
All right, you too. Wow, can't get any better than that. Robbie Mendes of the New Bedford Boys and Girls Club, executive director. Um, and throughout my life, he's been there and he's continued to be there. He's evolved and adapted to the different changes of kids and how they grow up in society now compared to way back when. But definitely, he deserves a lot of credit. And as you see and as you heard from him, you know what? As we're giving him praise, he's giving others praise, and that's the type of guy he is. So continue to add some comments to this podcast. Continue to say some great things about Robbie Mendes because he deserves it. And until next time, which next time is tomorrow, we'll have Nathan Victor on the show. Nathan been through a lot, heart transplant, definitely a great story, and y'all will not want to miss this one. So tune in tomorrow, same time, with Nathan Victor. In conclusion, mask those beautiful faces, wash and hand sanitize your hands, stay safe. I love you all. God bless, and please continue to watch the Really Charlie podcast on StreamYard, Anchor, Spotify, Facebook, and YouTube. Like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. It means a lot. See you tomorrow, folks. Love you.